Welcome everyone to the PGA Players Podcast. Today we are here with none other than the Brian Cain, mental performance coach. Welcome.
Yeah, Goldie, thanks for having me, man. I apologize if I sound like I smoked a carton of Marlboros. I swear I didn't, but woke up this morning with no voice, and I thought about for a second canceling the podcast, and I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I sound. It matters what comes out of my mouth in terms of how it can impact other people. So I apologize for the raspiness of the voice. This is not how I like to roll, but I like to roll with a raspy voice a lot more than I like to cancel a podcast on somebody. So the content that we bring today doesn't matter how I sound. It's about how it's going to impact the people that are listening. So thanks for having me.
Love it. As you've trained me, my answer to you when you asked,
Good.
Let's go. Let's go to work.
Yeah.
So the reason we're here today is having conversations around how the best athletes in the world, and specifically how the best PGA Tour players in the world create and convert their talent into value. And when players are on the PGA Tour, they're all super talented. Like, there's no question there. But what they're doing on the periphery to eke out a little bit more out of all their talent, that's what we're really trying to dive into and understand. Hey, what are the best practices? How do they actually operate where they can get better? And it doesn't show up. It's not taking a scratch handicap golfer to a pro golfer. This is taking the best of the best and making them even better. Maybe moving from 50th in the world to top 10 in the world. Maybe being 20th in the world and moving to number 1 in the world. That type of thing. So what I wanted to have the conversation around today is how these guys set up a personal operating system for their day. That day may be an off week. That day might be tournament week, tournament day. It's going to vary, AM, PM tee time, pro-am day, practice day. But would love to have that conversation with you now.
Yeah, I think essentially what we're getting at is everybody that's on the PGA Tour is talented, but how do you become a pro? And there's a difference, right? And I see this in my work across every sport. I mean, I've got Major League Baseball, NHL, NFL, NBA, PGA, LPGA, UFC, Olympic. I mean, I've had a privilege to be able to do all those in the 8 UFC world champions that I've had a chance to work with, most notably probably George St. Pierre, who I worked with for a decade. What is it that they do when they get to the top? Because it's often easier to get to the tour than stay on the tour, right? And I have one golfer who I've worked with who made the tour after 1 year, back to Korn Ferry, and then back up, and now he just, is in the top 70 right now in FedEx and playing the best golf of his life. And that's not by accident, right? Success doesn't happen by accident. It happens based off of your process. And I think for the golfers listening to this, the biggest takeaway I'd want them to have is your process is working perfectly for the results you're getting. So if you're a top 200 golfer, you probably have a top 200 process. If you're a top 20 golfer, you probably have a top 20 process. Now there's unicorns out there, like in baseball with Shohei Ohtani, who, could do nothing. Not I'm saying that he doesn't do anything, but a guy who I don't know what his process is, but a guy that can go out there and hit 3 home runs and strike out 10 guys in a game 4 of a championship series, like that's not the norm. So we're not talking about those unicorns. We're talking about the guys specifically that I've worked with that, or the gals that have had the ability to get to the top of the mountain and stay there. And I've had just as many get to the top and fall back down, and some get back up on top like George St. Pierre, and some disappear. So we're going to talk about what their processes are, how they go about it, and what it really means to go from being talented to being a pro. Exactly.
I think we all know how hard golf is, and we're going to get beat up. We're going to have some highs and lows. So how do we recover from those lows? One thing you said to me when we were getting ready for this is, how do we make your best days your baseline? And that's what we want to dive into.
So we were talking about making your best your baseline. I think that's a great concept to build off of, and how you take when you're at your best, what are you doing? And I think we've all had those snapshots, into our lives, whether it's as a PGA golfer or even off the course. And when I'm at my best, what am I doing? What's that structure like? What's that routine like? What are some of the key things I'm doing? And then being able to take that best and make it your new baseline. And a great example I would use would be, personally, being 240 pounds with a 44-inch waist as a high school athletic director in Vermont in the mid-2000s, and now being able to be, now running 100-mile races and doing things like I work out now and stay in a better body composition and a better physical shape at 47 than I probably ever got to when I was in my 30s. And a large part of that is because of that new mentality and mindset that I had, and it's all mental, right? The mindset of I'm going to make my best my new baseline. So I think when we're looking at, what does that look like for a PGA Tour golfer, we can dive into the kind of the system and the structure of that for sure.
Yeah, great. I think it's important before we go into the how, it's the why. And really understanding what makes you the athlete, you the golfer, tick, and what's important to you. So Walk me through your MVP process and what that means.
Yeah, so one of the first things that I do with guys out of season, right? I think it depends on when I'm getting access to a golfer. If I'm working with a golfer in season, it's going to be a lot of your preparation, your confidence, the body language, the visualization, the breath, the self-talk on the course, all those kind of like on-course skills. Because when I'm working with an athlete, we're looking at two things: development and performance. So performance is happening in the season, on the tour, when I'm playing. Development happens a little bit more like Monday, Tuesday, or in that short time where they're not playing in certain tournaments or whatever it is, because the golf season doesn't really end. So one of the things we like to look at is called your MVP process. And MVP stands for mission, vision, and principles. And the reason why having a personal MVP process is so important is what that allows you to do is one key thing. It allows you to bring your identity to golf instead of take your identity from golf. And I think when you look at the Full Swing documentary, one of the things I like most about Scotty Scheffler is where he said, like, golf is what I do, not who I am. And I think that's an elite level mindset. And there's different ways to get there. The fastest and easiest way I've found to get there with athletes is to create that MVP. So identifying your mission. Your mission is, what would you want on your gravestone? Bigger than winning tournaments, bigger than getting into a golf hall of fame or making X amount of dollars. The mission is, what do I want on my gravestone? The second piece, the vision, is, what do I want on my resume? That's where money earned, tournaments won, years on the tour. That's where like the tangible yes or no, did I do it, comes into play.
Yep.
But we find though is that most people don't find fulfillment in outcomes, in winning a tournament, in making X number of dollars. Fulfillment comes in how you use those things that you accomplish to create something bigger.
Yep.
Impacting people through creating a scholarship in your name that sends underprivileged kids to school that play golf, or something like an Evan Scholars Foundation with caddies, things like that. Like, that's much bigger fulfillment. So you want them both. You want the mission, what do I want on my gravestone? You want the vision, what do I want on my resume? And then you got to have your core principles. And the principles are what ground your behavior, right? A set of principles such as discipline, toughness, selfless, whatever it is. Those are good, process, present, positive. Those core principles are what then become like your core values, and they drive your behavior. And a lot of athletes live off of preference instead of principle. And if I can share a story, I'm working with a guy named Vitor Belfort, UFC world champion. I'm in the sauna at his hotel room in Mandalay Bay in Vegas. He's getting ready to fight Chris Weidman for a UFC title fight the next day. Vitor is about my age at the time. He's probably in his 40, 42 years old. And he had won a UFC title when he was like 18, 19 years old. So here's 20 years later fighting for a title again. And I remember sitting in the sauna, and he's got blankets on him, and he just, he's dropping all this weight. And I'm sitting in here with a guy who could literally kill me. And I said, "Champ, what is it you know now you wish you knew if you could go back and tell your younger self?" And he looked up, sweat pouring off of his face, his face sucked in because he's lost so much water weight in the sauna. And he said, "Cainer, if I could go back and talk to a younger Vitor, I would tell him the difference between a boy and a man. And a man makes decisions out of principle, and a boy makes decisions out of preference. And I wish I was a man earlier. I wish I was principle-driven earlier, because I would have been more grounded. I would have been more consistent. I would have been more successful." And then he looked at me and said, "What are your principles?" And I felt like about an inch tall.
Felt like a boy.
And I'm thinking, man, I just walked through a casino, placed a couple hands of blackjack, and had a couple shots on the way up here. No, which I didn't. But I'm like, principle, I don't know. And he goes, "Tomorrow when I see you before the fight," he goes, "I want to know what your principles are." So I go back to my hotel room that night, and I literally Google search, how do you create a set of core principles? And I think for the athlete, golfer listening to this, it would be write down the first 10 to 20 core values that come to your mind. How do you want to be known? And then look at them, and then trim it down in half, and trim it in half until you get to 3 or 5, and identify what those are. And when I've done that with athletes, the difference that I see when they know what their core principles are and how they want to show up from a core principle or core value standpoint, they're far more confident in themselves, they're far more grounded, and they're far more consistent.
It's so powerful. I mean, in this day and age, whether it's the media, whether it's fans, whether it's social media, every player is being told who they are. And it's so easy to take your identity out of your results, to be able to fall back, or take a step back, not fall back, take a step back and define yourself, and define what your mission is, what your vision is, what your principles are. That sets your base, your foundation for your life and for golf, of course. But it helps you go back whether it's highs or lows. Sometimes you need it the most at the highs to really make sure that you're grounded and understand who you are as a person. So I think it really sets the stage for then, how do I operate my best day?
Yeah, I agree. And I think success will change you and failure will challenge you. And the answer to both of those equations on both sides is, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Right. And when you identify who you want to be, and this is an aggressive, I'm trying to be excellent, be the best version of me, and I'm getting out of comparison to everybody else who's an animal on the tour, and I'm getting into competing with myself. Mm-hmm. And for me to compete with myself, my core principles make the acronym APPLES. I need to be accountable. I need to be present. I need to run a process. I need to be loving. I need to bring energy, and I need to serve. I need to give back. And if I live a day in alignment with APPLES, regardless of the results, usually really good if I'm living in alignment with my values, then I'm going to be fulfilled. And if I'm fulfilled on that day and I keep stacking days one on top of each other, it makes a great year. It makes a great career. It's no different in golf. You don't try to win the tournament. You try to win the shot. And when you go literally one shot at a time and shot by shot, that gives you the best chance to score well, to win a tournament, to extend your career. But you don't extend your career by focusing on the outcome. You extend it by focusing on the process of all the little decisions that it takes to get there. And Nick Saban coaching Alabama is maybe the greatest example of that in team sport, where he talks about, we're not trying to win a national championship or an SEC title or defend anything. We're attacking everything that has to do with today. And if we do that every day, that transitions into one play or one shot at a time, and that's the best chance for success. And a lot of people talk about it, but there's very specific system and detail and drill work that we do to allow athletes to get there.
Let's talk about the development side of it for a little bit. So let's say this is an off week, off month. Hopefully, you got 2 months off after the playoffs, getting ready for next year. Talk to me about AM and PM routines, how they relate to each other, mm-hmm. and how this is going to set up their day as it relates to both performance and on the course work, but also their personal life and being able to leave it at the course. Yeah. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you in this question, but I think one of the hardest things for golfers, because it's not a sport where you're just exhausted after a 2-hour practice, it's hard to turn it off and be like, you know what, I'm done for the day. I've accomplished what I want to accomplish. I need to move on to the next day. I need to go home, shut it down, and be present with, whether it's your kids, your wife, your girlfriend, even if it's just by yourself, you need to be able to be present there too. So how does that, the question being, how does an AM and PM routine help set that up for success, and how do they interplay together?
Great question. I want to actually take it a little bit deeper than that if I can, and think about the concept of an hourglass, right? Okay. So an hourglass is, I funnel in, I do a specific task, I come out. So every shot in golf has an hourglass. Pre-shot routine, execute the shot, post-shot routine. And to use the language from Vision 54, it would be think box, commitment line, play box, and then, the post-shot routine. Okay. So I think golfers can understand the analogy of an hourglass. If I come in, I hit the shot, I come out. Well, the same thing happens for your day, right? You get ready to go to bed. You do your PM routine, you go to bed, you wake up, you have an AM routine, and now you're in your day. And that same thing happens for parts of your day. So if you think about just working a good hourglass, and one of the language we use with our golfers is like, hey, how is your hourglass on the course? How is your hourglass at the course? How is your hourglass for the day? How is your hourglass for the tournament, for the waste management, right?
Yeah.
And, so understanding how you come in and you come out, well, your AM and PM routine are a big part of that to make sure that you're starting the day on the right foot. But in order to do that with the AM routine, the PM routine has to be in place. And I want to make it really obvious for the people listening to this that the AM routine will take care of itself and will fall into place if you do the PM routine. And a lot of times we put so much emphasis on the AM routine and waking up early. Well, you don't compare yourself to other people. Like, early is only relevant to the individual, but the PM routine has to be in place so that you are actually able to get to bed at the said time that you want to, so you can wake up at the time that you want to execute. If my go to bed time right now with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, if I'm trying to go to bed at 8:30 and wake up at 4:30, and I choose to stay up and watch a game or something until 10:30, the odds of me getting up at 4:30 drastically go down because I want to sleep. So I think where it starts, Goldie, is identifying what does your ideal day look like and what does your ideal week look like. And with the golfers I work with, they have an ideal week for when they're at a tournament, and they have an ideal week or so when they're not at a tournament. And those routines will adjust a little bit, but the one thing that's consistent, and if you look at any of the sleep research, like talk to Dr. Chris Winter in Charlottesville or James Moss, who was at Cornell that wrote Power Sleep, anything you read or research on sleep, they're going to reference the importance of going to bed and waking up at a consistent time. And, for some golfers, it might be 10 to 6. It might be midnight to 7, but depending on tee times and things like that, there might be an abnormality in there. But the thing I love about golf is, for a large part, you can control what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, and you can be consistent with it 7 days a week, maybe other than a Sunday travel night or something like that. Unlike baseball, where there's game times and there's a ton of travel and things like that happen, and you have to show and go the next day. So it starts with identifying, what does my ideal day look like? And then what does my ideal go to bed, wake up time look like? And then what do I need to do from a PM routine to make sure I'm able to actually get in bed and go to bed at this specific time? And a PM routine might look like a digital detox. When do I put my phone down? And with the athletes I work with, we have a no phone in bed rule. The bed is for two things, and phone isn't one of them. So when I'm not on my phone in my bedroom, literally plug it in the hotel bathroom or put it somewhere else, but don't allow yourself to bring your phone into the bed, because it's going to be too tempting to be on it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that's key. Another one would be like any type of red light, blue light glasses that you can put on. I use Raw Optics. They've been the best ones I've found out of all of them. So I'll put those on like an hour and a half or so before bed. Any type of PM supplementation routine that they might do.
Yep.
Ashwagandha, magnesium, Thorn PM supplements, whatever it is, whatever guys are taking. And then some type of like activate my parasympathetic, right? Like I'm going to do a shift wave chair, or I'm going to do maybe a hot tub, or I'm going to take a hot shower, or I'm going to do some type of, ideally as a golfer, some type of visualization, especially when they're in a tournament, going through my yardage book and how I want to play. Maybe there's some type of reading, there's a shower, but there's a definite like series of steps that they take in that PM routine to go from kind of like fight or flight, I'm on, into rest and digest and fall asleep. There's a process there. Reverse engineer that even further back. When they finish going to the golf course, okay? A big part of that hourglass for golf is, when does your round start? And guys will go, well, when I get to the first tee box, or after I eat in the dining hall and I go over to the range, whatever it is. And I would say, well, the routine, the golf day starts when you enter your hourglass, and your hourglass should start with a shower. So first tee time, last tee time, wherever in there, wherever you're staying, once you get in that shower and you get out and you start putting your clothes on, you're putting on your golf uniform. And at the end of the day, when you're done playing and you take the uniform off and you shower well, you have to wash away that day. So the coming out of the hourglass from a golf round, which allows them to turn their brain off a little bit, has to be structured and intentional. And I'd recommend something like a journal where I get out of my head and on paper, well, better how, what did I do today? Maybe they're going through their Tiger 5 stats, whatever. There's a little analysis that happens. Then it's going to be jumping in the shower. And as I jump in the shower, I'm washing off that day's round.
Yeah.
And then I put on clothes that are not my golf clothes. I put on something else to separate between who and do. Right, and separate those two things. And then laying your clothes out the night before, so when you wake up in the morning, you already know what you're going to do, and you know going to bed, I'm prepared for tomorrow, here's what I need, I got everything. That helps you separate and come out of the golf mindset into going back to be a dad or whatever it is you have to do. But if you don't have a good routine coming out of the round, that's when it's hard to turn that off. And I think any athlete I've worked with, myself, even as a coach, that's one of the hardest things to do, is how to turn it off. Matt Carpenter, Major League Baseball player, 3-time All-Star. I go back. Was on one of the first teams I ever worked with at TCU in 2006.
Okay.
And I remember talking to him after he got done playing his career, and I said, like, what's something you know now you wish you knew back then? And he goes, man, I wish I knew how to turn it off earlier. He goes, I didn't really learn that till I had kids. He goes, but when you can turn it off, you have more to give when you need to turn it back on. And I think that translates into golf beautifully.
Exactly. It's so hard to turn it off in golf. And if you try to be on 24/7, you can't give it your all the 5 hours you're on the golf course, or however long you're on the golf course. But if you can zoom out and say, hey, as soon as I'm done at the golf course, I shower, I put on street clothes, I'm now done for the day. Yep. Obviously, you got to take care of your recovery and all that type of stuff, but you're turning it off. It allows you to dial it up when you're on.
Correct. And then even when you're on the course, right, you're in and out of the hourglass the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we show up to this tee box and the other group is getting ready to tee off, or they're still right early in the fairway, so I'm going to have 10 minutes before I tee off or 15 minutes before I tee off. Like, you get those slow rounds, right? I mean, I've caddied at the Waste Management, and sometimes you're waiting like 25, 30 minutes at the tee box. You're out of the hourglass. Well, what does that look like? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And for some guys, it depends on where they stand. Other guys, it might be like they grab a water bottle, whatever it is. But when it's their turn to get ready to go, it's like there's a change in body language. There's a change in posture. We enter an hourglass, yardage book. What are we trying to do? Okay, good. Glove comes out. And that glove becomes the trigger for the shot. So like the clothes become the trigger for I'm the golfer, I'm not the golfer. The glove becomes the trigger for I'm in the shot, I'm out of the shot. And the trigger becomes important because that allows you to mentally distinguish between the last shot and the next shot, or when I'm out of the hourglass walking down the fairway, and when I enter my hourglass with the bag down, talking through the yards with my caddy, getting my glove on and being ready to commit to that shot. This very distinct process that most guys do, They just don't do it very intentional, and they don't create meaning to what they're doing. The meaning is what becomes important. Like when Kevin Roy on the PGA Tour, it was brilliant. One of the things that we've talked about was, after a shot that he doesn't like and he's got some frustration, whatever it is, walk with the glove either on or in your hand. And you might even smack himself in his leg with the glove. And when it's time to let that shot go, the glove goes in the pocket. And when you get to the ball, you're back in your hourglass. But that glove becomes a physical representation of the last shot that I hit with it. And when I take it off, that shot's gone. And when I put it back on, the next shot starts.
That's great. Yeah. You have to be able to let it go, but it's natural we need to analyze it too.
Yeah.
And being able to have that trigger, hit yourself, whatever it is, use that glove as that physical trigger. It's massive. I know I struggled with that when I played. If there are a lot of people around, there's a lot going on, it actually helped me because I knew I needed to lock in when it was my turn to hit. When nobody was out there, and that was usually the case for when I was playing, nobody was out watching me. I really struggled because there's nothing to distract you, and so I was just kind of trying to be locked in for the entire round, and you just can't do that.
Yeah, you got to come in and come out. You got to come in and you got to come out. And the physical trigger, the physical association with something, putting a tee in the ground, throwing my ball to my caddy, getting the ball back, a glove, a putter in one hand, putter in the other hand, whatever it is. All those little triggers that we identify for each person, they have their own unique aspects to it. Gives them the opportunity to know when I do this, I'm in the present moment. And one of the things you said I wanted to go back to was the reflection piece. And I think in golf, people talk a lot about the pre-shot and then like your time from when you cross the commitment line or take a breath until you strike the ball. That time should be the same. We've all seen the video of Tiger Woods where it's to a millisecond, whatever. But I think the piece that gets undertaught, largely undertaught, and where I really got this was like in football and baseball of coming out of a play or a pitch and getting ready to play the next one because the next one is coming. In golf, the next one is coming. It's just coming, and you have a longer window.
Yeah.
And that longer window can be to your advantage to let go of the shot and process it, or it can be to your detriment where you hold on to it longer. And the longer you hold on to a weight, the heavier it gets. So the process of coming out of a shot that I like to use is 3 questions. 1, what was I trying to do? 2, what happened? 3, what's my next best decision? And if you can ask yourself that, what happened? What was I trying to do? What's my next best decision? That allows you to process that shot. And most of the time it's going to be, I was trying to do this and I did that and let's get to the next shot, right? But you have to do it on the good ones to make the process the same as the ones that you don't hit the way you want to. And Kobe Bryant was interviewed by Lewis Howes in the School of Greatness. And the one that hit me there like a ton of bricks is when Lewis asked him, Kobe, what does losing feel like? And he said, it's exciting. He goes, it's exciting because there's answers there. And then Lewis goes, well, you probably learn more from losing than you do from winning, right? And he goes, well, no, it's got to be the same. Kobe Bryant, I don't know if you ever worked with a sports psychologist, but he says you have to have the same process. Whether you win or you lose, the process should be the same. So you ask yourself, what did I do well? What do I want to do better? And how am I going to do the things I want to do well again? And how do I want to do the things I want to do better? He goes, but regardless of the outcome, the process should be the same because that's how you extract the learning. And there's learning there whether you win or you lose.
So good. So good. Nice. All right. Walk me through, you mentioned a perfect day, perfect week that you have your players set up and kind of outline. Let's start with a perfect day. How do you have a player walk through or outline his perfect day? And I'm talking even like logistically, are they writing it down on a piece of paper? Do you have them put it in a Google Calendar? What typically are you doing? And it might be unique to every player.
Yeah, I would first say ideal day, not perfect day, because I think perfect means there's not going to be any mistakes. Ideal is I know there's going to be mistakes, and I have contingencies already built in my schedule to be able to handle those mistakes.
Love it.
Right? So I think it starts with understanding that scripting out your day in time blocks and being intentional with it is the key. Then the next step is actually being able to honor those time blocks. And I still haven't mastered that piece. I'm getting better with it. But I think you have to ask yourself, what's my ideal day? What's my ideal PM routine start time? My ideal go to bed time? My ideal amount of time I want to have in bed? This is where like sports psychology cannot be standalone as a field. It has to be integration. This is to me the mental performance. I have to integrate all of these skills, the skill of time management, the skill of organization, nutrition, when do I need to eat, Sleep, what time do I need to get in bed? The consistency of all that, the supplementation that comes from blood work, right? The nutrition that's based off of what my body composition goals are, based off of a DEXA scan. So all these things get worked in together. That's why I consider myself mental performance and high performance coaching going together, because I help guys coordinate all of this. So it starts with, what time do I start my PM routine because of what time I want to go to bed? There's a domino there. Okay, what time do I wake up? What's my morning routine look like? Well, it looks a lot different if you got kids under the age of 4 who might wake up in the middle of the night than it does if you're on the road by yourself. And then what time do I want to wake up? And then what does my day look like? Largely impacted by what time do I need to get into the shower and get dressed to get to the course for a workout or for a tee time. So all these factors come into play. But the one thing that the golfer listening to this wants to do is plan tomorrow tonight. If you go to bed without a calendar plan, whether it's written down in agenda form, like time blocks in a notebook, whether it's done in the Apple Calendar or I use Google Calendar, if it's in your head, it becomes heavy and you're kind of winging it. You want to get it out of your head and on paper so you don't have to think about it. You don't want to have to think about it. You want to be able to look at that calendar and that routine. And the beautiful part about, say, using something like Google Calendar is you can share that with your caddy. You can share that with your spouse. You can share that with your agent. You can share that with other people. So they're all helping know, hey, I'm not going to call this guy right now. He's on the course doing what he needs to do, but I can simply pull up his calendar and look at it.
Yeah.
So all the athletes that I coach, I help them to coordinate that calendar so they know exactly what it looks like in advance. And now they feel like they're playing offense, not defense. Knowing the day's not going to be perfect, it's going to get disrupted by weather or other things that I have to do that come up unexpectedly, but we're able to adapt and adjust. So the key is be structured with what your ideal day looks like in time blocks, and then be able to adapt and adjust. And those time blocks are going to look like AM routine, PM routine, sleep, nutrition, at the course, recovery, family time, maybe some mental performance block in there, which probably usually gets doubled down in with recovery, and then your free time, right? If you want free time and you want 3 hours to watch a Monday Night Football game, schedule it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think I didn't work with you on this when I was playing, but post playing and now what I'm doing now professionally, my biggest objection when I first heard this is going to be too structured. This is going to be too regimented. Things happen, and you made a great clarification. It's not the perfect day. It's the ideal day because you have to adapt. You have to be able to adjust. What I found once I finally bought into it was it actually allowed me more freedom.
Yeah.
Because I knew exactly what I needed to get done that day. I had a time to do it. It was the right time to do it, and it provided more free time that I could then allocate to other things, to my family, to my kids, to my wife, to working out, whatever it may be. And it actually allowed me to adjust a lot quicker because I knew, hey, I have a gap here, or this is a lower priority. I can move this off to the next day or this time period later on. So I think everyone probably thinks that they're time blocking in their head, whether they're doing it on paper or not. I really encourage guys to do it either on paper or in a Apple or Google Calendar.
Yeah, get out
it
of
makes
your head.
such a big difference.
Get out of your head and on paper, right? And an easy analogy is like, you're a PGA golfer. You're making, let's say, $2 million. You're making $2 million a year. You're making millions of dollars a year. Find me a company that makes $1 million a year that doesn't have a group calendar that's shared with the people on that team. It doesn't exist. So you are your own business. You are the CEO of your business. You're also the janitor. So you have to do it all. So like having that calendar allows you to be more organized and allows other people around you to be more organized. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing it does is it allows you to be in the present moment. And when we perform our best on the course and in life, we are in the present moment. And I know that for the time block that we have here together today, there's nothing else that I need to do in this time block. There's a lot of things I have to do after. There's a lot of things I've had to do before, as you've seen being here, and things that pop up last minute, and we have to adapt and adjust, which you've seen. But even with that adapt and adjusting, when you get into the time block, you can completely be where your feet are and be in that present moment, which gives you the best chance for success, whether it's doing a podcast or it's trying to win in Augusta.
Love it. Once you have these ideal days built out, AM, PM routine, what have you seen as the best way to track it and then have some self-accountability?
So one of the key principles, or call it frameworks, that I teach, and it's probably the number one, if I could teach one framework at all, would be what I call the 4-step player development formula. Step 1, set your intention. What do you want? That's your MVP process. Identify what you want for your mission, vision, and principles, and then your goals for that quarter, personally and professionally.
Yep.
Second step, schedule it. That's where the Google Calendar comes in. Do the blocks on my calendar align with what I want in my life? What's on my MVP? And I think where fulfillment comes from, and I got this from a mentor of mine named Charlie Smith, he said, where fulfillment comes from in your life is when what you do in your life is in alignment with what you want for your life. I'll say that again. Where fulfillment comes from is when what you do in your life is in alignment with what you want for your life. And most people, me included for the longest time, move so fast getting to the next thing that we never press pause long enough to go, what is it I really want? What is it I really, really want? And what I'm doing in my life aligning with that. And when you set your core principles and you get clear on what you really want, it becomes a filter for decision making to say, does this get me one step closer or further from what I'm trying to do? And if it's taking me further from what I want to do and who I want to be, why am I doing this? Right? So step 1, set your intention. What do you want? Step 2, schedule it. Does your calendar align with what you want? Step 3, measure it. And that's where I use a concept called the success checklist. I interviewed a guy named Marshall Goldsmith, one of the top executive coaches in the planet. He wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, 20 Workplace Habits That Stunt Your Growth as a Leader. Massive impact in my life. So when I read a book that I really like, I call and interview the author. And I have him on my podcast. And when I interviewed Marshall Goldsmith, I said, what's the best practice? The one thing that you do with your clients that you feel like would be easily implemented by any other coach and have success and get results? And he said, success checklist. I said, explain that. He goes, with my clients, we talk every night for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, and we go through their success checklist for the day. What are the habits they're trying to create? What are the things they're trying to eliminate, right? So one might be, did I not have alcohol today? Another one might be, did I not lose self-control and blow up on somebody today? Another one might be from a golfer standpoint, did I do exit drills with my putting today to work on putting pressure on myself to get better? Did I do some sort of recovery, whether it be shift wave, float tank, massage, Normatec, whatever it is? So he would call the client and they would talk through it. So for me, I use a success checklist with an app called Habit Share, and that Habit Share is the behaviors that the athlete would want to do that day. So for example, like did I make my bed? Did I have my body weight in grams of protein? Did I lift weights if I was supposed to do that today, right? Did I do these certain drills, whatever it is? And whatever the behaviors are that they want, they put them on that checklist. And then when we get on our weekly calls, 2 of the things that I do at the start of the call is look at your weekly checklist and look at your calendar and do your behaviors on your checklist that you either check yes or no you did, and your calendar align with what you're saying you want to be. Because if you want to be a top 10 player in the world, that's going to look a lot different than a top 200 player in the world.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to be the best in the world, it's going to look a lot different than I'm happy to be on the PGA Tour, which a lot of guys are. Right, because they like that lifestyle. But that lifestyle and being on the tour isn't what's going to get you to stay on the tour. So the 4th step then is the reflect and refocus. And that's where I feel like what I do as a coach is bring that level of accountability to the player to help them have to reflect every week, because sometimes they won't if they're just moving so fast. So when we get on the call, we're looking at calendar, habit share. How do we perform? What are the stats? Going through a well, better, how. And then we're using that well, better, how and that assessment to go, okay, we recapped that week. What's the game plan for this week? What do we got to do better this week? Where are we losing time? Where are we losing strokes? Where are we going to get better? And one of my favorite concepts is from Kevin Roy is strokes gained attitude. I would say, where are we getting those strokes gained attitude? Everybody talks about tee to green or putting, but really the biggest strokes in the PGA Tour, because everyone's so good, is going to come from the 6 inches between your ears. And where are those strokes gained attitude coming from? Is it from better visualization the night before going through the yardage book? Is it from better body language on the course? Is it from better self-talk? What are we dialing in on this week to get those strokes gained attitude?
Love it. Strokes gained attitude is a new one for me, but
that's great.
I think they need to figure out a way to measure it.
That's the hard part of the mental game, though, to your point.
Exactly.
The hard part with the mental game, why not everybody's really into it, is how do you measure it?
It's immeasurable.
How do you measure it?
Yeah.
But largely it is, right? I mean, there's some people who say you might be able to measure it, but I don't know how you do that, and I've been doing this for 25 years. It's not like TrackMan where I can measure everything. And the hard part, I think, for golfers or any athlete, baseball, whatever sport, is if they can't physically measure it, they don't believe that it's real.
Correct. But that's why I think the success checklist is so huge, and as an athlete, you can relate to it so quickly.
Yeah.
It's what's really important about what you said is it's behaviors and habits. It's not results.
Yeah.
Like it's not a, hey, did I win a putting contest? Did I win the round today? Did I shoot 65? It's no, did I do these behaviors that the habits and behaviors that lead to improvement and hopefully success, the results. But we can't create the results if we don't do the behaviors.
It's behavioral analytics is essentially what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's looking at the behaviors, and at the end of the day, do the behaviors that I have align with what the goals I have are? And it doesn't guarantee you an outcome, but it gives you the best chance for success. And if I'm going to go all in on anything, it's going to be what gives me the best chance for success.
And if you're measuring that and then you're not getting the results you want, you have a better baseline to be able to change. Hey, these are the habits or the behaviors that I maybe need to adapt and change in order to improve and get different results than what I'm getting right now.
Correct.
Love it.
The results are not random.
No. Well, you said it in the beginning of the podcast. If I'm going to butcher it, so I'm going to have you say it.
Your process is working perfectly for the results that you get.
Exactly. If you're getting the results of a top 200 player, that's the process that you've created. Yeah. If the process is working perfectly for the results you're getting as a top 20 player, that's what you're getting.
Yeah, and here's some simple questions to ask yourself. When's the last time I had a DEXA scan and know what my body composition is? When's the last time I had a macronutrition or meal plan based off of my body composition? When's the last time I had blood work? And from that blood work, I had specific supplementation program that I was going to take. What am I doing to track sleep? Am I wearing Oura, Whoop, Garmin? What is my ideal sleep environment? Do I have an 8 sleep or a chili pad? Am I wearing earplugs and an eye mask? Am I taping my mouth? When is the last time I was doing journaling process? How often am I visualizing? Am I watching a mind movie, which on the PGA Tour is great because I can go on and I can pull all the great shots that they have in video and put a mind movie together for the athletes that I have. When's the last time that I was looking at my calendar? All those things, like those are 10 questions right there that we just ripped off without thinking at all, that if you can't answer yes to all those, that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's turning this into optimization.
Correct.
Talent can get players to the PGA Tour. And there's the freaks that are going to be just uber talented, like you said, of the Shoheis of the world that probably can get to top 10 or top 20 in the world just based on talent alone. But that's not who we're talking to here.
Yeah, and golf is the hardest one to do that in.
Exactly.
Because there's no contract.
All of us have seen those players, and sometimes they rise up, but then they maybe don't stay. How do we stay? How do we keep rising? How do we keep getting better?
Yeah, and then when you're on top of the game, how do you not get bored? I think if you watch the Tiger Woods documentary, I think that was on either HBO or Netflix, one of the things that I looked at and watched, I said, man, this guy got bored with all the success. He went to go challenge himself to do Navy SEAL training, other things that, were probably fun, but that's not necessarily in the best interest of the health of his golf career. But, it's so, and I see it with guys that, whether it's Cy Young winners or batting champions that I've coached in baseball or UFC fighters that win a title or get to the top, it's like they get bored with success. And in order to not get bored with success, you have to keep redefining what success means to you.
What success means to you personally, but also how does it tie back into your MVP process and not to,
Well, one of the aspects of the MVP process, right, is your definition of success.
Yeah.
Another aspect of the MVP are your 3 keys to keep it simple when you're playing your best golf. What are the 3 things you're doing, right? The other part of the MVP process are your affirmations. When you're talking to yourself, what are you saying? Right, in the MVP process, there's also your one-word focus. And that's probably the easiest strategy for everybody listening to this, is that for you to become the best version of you and step into growth for the next month or 3 months, what's that one-word focus that if you live in alignment with, you're going to be the best version of you?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to do another episode at some point to dive deeper because this is great stuff.
Good.
And I think the PGA Tour players would love this.
Yeah, I'll save them all, bros.
Yeah, maybe
after the episode.
Yeah, we can go smoke a cigar afterwards, something like that. Celebrate. We'll see who wins the World Series. But
either way, we win. We got guys on both teams.
There you go.
Win either way.
There we go. So, no, this has been super informative. I think guys are going to love to hear this. Everyone from PGA Tour players to college players. Tell everyone that's listening, you have 2 podcasts. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yep. Yeah. Best thing they can do is go to briancain.com/golf, BrianCain.com/golf. I have about a 45-minute golf masterclass on there where I take my system of the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery and how it's applied specific to golf. From there, I talk about the 3 steps to maximum growth: total immersion learning, spaced repetition, accountability partner, and a plan. So a golfer listening to this that goes, man, that was good, I want more. Go watch the masterclass. That's total immersion. You're getting 45 minutes of more mental game than maybe you've ever gotten. From there, go spaced repetition. Spaced repetition would be my podcast, Mental Performance Daily, 2 to 3 minutes a day. Often you guys do it with breakfast or coffee or driving to the course. I have another podcast, Mental Performance Mastery, which is more long-form interviews like this. The third step is total immersion learning, spaced repetition, accountability partner, and a plan. That accountability partner and plan would be hire a one-on-one mental performance coach, whether it be me or a member of our team. Kevin Guzzo, who heads up our golf division, is fabulous. So if it's not right fit for me and the athlete, then we would get Kevin involved. But I think that's the plan: is total immersion, golf masterclass, briancain.com/golf, spaced repetition, daily podcast, accountability partner plan. Let's set up a call and see if it's the right fit to work together.
It's great. The Mental Performance Daily is part of my AM routine. One of the 2 or 3 podcasts I listen to on the way into work. just sets the tone for the day, brings the energy, as you say, brings the juice.
Brings the juice, and if you're juiceful, you're useful. If you're juiceless, you're useless, and energy is your edge. And energy in golf looks a lot different than energy in the NFL or college football, but the guys that played the best, they got energy. And I always go back to Novak Djokovic, the greatest tennis player maybe in our generation. Then he said in a 60 Minutes interview, he said, the guy asked him, he said, well, I think your greatest gift is that you have this mental toughness. And he goes, I have to correct you. It is not a gift. It is something that I have trained and worked on. He goes, on the inside, he goes, on the outside, I may look calm, cool, and collected, but on the inside, I'm going 100 miles an hour. On the inside, I'm very, very competitive and very tense. And sometimes there's self-doubt, but you have to have tools that you work on to address that. And for the guys listening to this that are into podcast, Novak Djokovic was on a podcast with Jay Shetty, which I'll send the link to you that maybe you can throw in the show notes too, or however, but it was phenomenal hearing a guy who's the best maybe ever to do what he does, number one in the world, and what it took to get there, and then more importantly, what it took to stay there.
Yeah, love it. Can't wait to listen to it. Awesome. Brian, thanks for being on. Looking forward to more conversations.
Yeah, thanks, Goldie. Appreciate it.